For more on what almost all the experts say will be a long and slow recovery, we are now joined by CNBC's Trish Regan. And Trish, we just heard from the president that the news is good, but not great. So what do economists say needs to happen to make this sustained growth?
Oh, well, Peter, we need jobs. I mean, that's the reality of the situation, but those jobs are very hard to come by. Keep this in mind. It takes 100,000 jobs being added to the economy every month just to break even, just to keep the unemployment rate at 9.7%. So if you really want to see that rate start to come down, you're talking about adding 200, 300,000 jobs consistently every month, and we're just not even close to that. Keep in mind this 162,000 jobs that were being added last month. A number of those jobs came from census workers. Those jobs won't be there in the near future, and so it's going to be a real challenge to get this job rate to look better in the coming months.
So you speak about the challenge, so many Americans looking for work. How difficult is it for an average American to find work right now?
You know, Peter, there's an interesting statistic that they showed in this jobs report. Basically, if you were looking for work in the month of February and you tried to find a job in the month of March, your chances of finding a job last month were actually the worst they have been since they started looking at this particular piece of data in 1948. So that really puts it in some perspective, really shows you just how difficult it is, how discouraging it is for workers. And of course, everyone hopes that it will get better soon, but we will have to see.
Yeah, still a lot of sobering economic news. Trish Regan from CNBC. Trish, thanks so much.
You bet.
From the Worcester Telegram and Gazette today for 7/2010. Jobs up by 290,000 yet jobless rate rises to 9.9%. More confident employers stepped up job creation in April, expanding payrolls by 290,000, the most in 4 years. The jobless rate rose to 9.9% as people streamed back into the market looking for work. The hiring of 66,000 temporary government workers to conduct the census helped overall payroll growth last month. However, private employers, the backbone of the economy, boosted jobs. They added a surprisingly strong 231,000 positions last month, also the most since March 2006, the Labor Department reported this morning. The unemployment rate rose from 9.7% in March to 9.9% in April, mainly because 805,000 job seekers, perhaps feeling better about their prospects, resumed their searches for work. Many economists have predicted the unemployment rate would rise as people come back into the labor force. The jobless rate hit 10.1% in October, a 26-year high. Lies, lies, and more lies. Those jobs were for the census takers, but they are not perm. This was all over the news. The unemployment rate is up. Well, that means only one thing. You have people who have stopped collecting their checks. The states keep record of who is and who isn't collecting. This is because since April there are over 1 million people who have no checks to collect, and that number is getting larger each month as there are no more tiers. The last tier is Tier 4. Congress just doesn't seem to know how to address the numbers of unemployed. Last count 31 million. One hope was to get the jobs lost in the mess of this recession. Then once they are gone, employers who have been holding off from hiring are now starting to rehire, but not what they were paying before, but at a much lower wage. Over the past 2 years I have followed very closely these employers within a 50-mile radius of Boston, Mass. And the list I generated shows that from $15 an hour down to $8 an hour. Kind of makes you think this was designed to happen. It is well known that employers hate giving out raises or good pay rates. Their only interest is profits for them, and you have to work harder by longer hours or less pay. Here's a thought. The more Congress plays its game with those unemployed, And the longer they keep playing their game, the over 1 million+ people they let hang without their lifeline. As of April the 5th, they will have no choice to contact their cable providers, phone companies, credit card holders, utilities companies, and mortgage companies. So what do you think is going to happen there? They will not have their money and then lose their profits and finally have to lay off their people as well, causing another crisis. So go on, Congress, keep it going, and the next thing you'll have is no collection of taxes and the whole thing goes to hell. Who will pay your salary then? I bet you didn't plan on that, now did you? Finally, the planned crisis that you and Wall Street have created such a bigger problem than you thought would happen. So instead of having all of the millions going into bankrupt and in despair, allowing us to have this slow and painful death, why don't you have all of us pain in the lazy ass people round up and done away with? The only question I'm sure some Republican is going to ask is who's going to pay for that, so you can go on with your wonderful life.